Prime Minister Scott Morrison is now saying COVID is not the flu, in a sign he will be increasingly cautious about opening the borders. In an exclusive interview with Sky News, the Prime Minister also was reluctant to comment on whether the states could opt out of accepting international travellers. Tom Connell has the details from Launceston.
Proving that all politics is ultimately local, Scott Morrison last night attended the reopening of a pool table here at a pub in Launceston. It had been shut because of COVID. He had a couple of games of pool, including with the Premier, Peter Gutwein. He lost both of them. But his message was actually for all voters in Australia, a cautious one about how we have to treat COVID.
We do, but COVID's not the flu. COVID's not the flu. COVID is killing thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and in many times thousands just a week.
So if you had a change of heart, because you said once we're vaccinated we'll be able to treat COVID like the flu, is that no longer the case?
I think what we've seen over the course of this year is we've seen the variants and we've seen the uncertainties only increase.
But your message now is because of these variants you believe we can no longer think of COVID like the flu even once we're vaccinated?
Well, I think we don't know where it will be in a year from now, Tom.
That goes against what he said just back in March, that perhaps with vaccination, COVID could be just like the flu.
In other words, with sufficient vaccination of the population, we can start treating COVID like a bad flu. And if we can continue to manage new strains of the virus, this changing risk profile will allow for controls to be further relaxed.
So where is the caution coming from? Well, apart from new variants the Prime Minister says he's concerned about, perhaps it's also vaccination rates, which even in countries that have charged ahead in the vaccine rollout appear to be plateauing.
Well, we're not even seeing developed countries that are further ahead with the vaccination now achieving any better than sort of the 60s. That's what's being achieved overseas. And so I think it's sort of very preliminary to make judgments about what level of protection that provides for a community. I don't think the numbers are in on that.
Eventually, international borders will reopen. The question is, will they reopen right around the country? In the travel bubble, some states have opted not to open up to New Zealand so far, in particular WA. So could they do that again in the future when borders are completely open?
They're sovereign states. They have their own powers and responsibilities and they have to exercise them.
But they, for example, WA said, no, we don't want a part of the New Zealand travel bubble. That's international travel. They didn't want the planes landing.
Well, they're exercising public state authorities.
Would they be able to do that if all
Tom, they can
were
exercise the powers they have under their constitution and under the federal constitution. That's not changing.
But does that mean if all borders are open, they could still do that?
Tom, I don't think there's any great help in speculating on hypotheticals in the middle of a pandemic. That's why I don't do it. And so what we'll do is keep working together.
But that'd be a power you could find out.
What we will do is make decisions as best as we can together.
It's a sign the government is increasingly wanting to avoid fights with the states over COVID-19, given how much state incumbency has meant they've had massive election wins, something, of course, Scott Morrison hopes he can replicate. Tom Connell, Sky News, Launceston.